She can't even walk, Your Honor. How can she possibly raise a child? My mother-in-law's voice echoed through the courtroom, each word cutting deeper than the last. Look at her, bound to that wheelchair. My granddaughter deserves better. I sat there, my hands gripping my wheelchair's armrests so tightly my knuckles turned white. Beside me, my husband Thomas squeezed my shoulder, his touch grounding me as Margaret, his mother, continued her theatrical performance. My name is Olivia Chen Martinez, and at 32, I found myself fighting to keep custody of my own daughter because my mother-in-law decided my disability made me an unfit mother. Mrs. Martinez, the judge interrupted, her voice sharp. Are you suggesting that people with disabilities are incapable of parenting? Margaret straightened her designer blazer, her perfectly manicured hand gesturing dramatically toward me. I'm saying my 8-year-old granddaughter needs someone who can keep up with her. Emma's a talented athlete. She needs guidance, physical support. How can someone who can't even stand provide that? I thought about Emma, our brilliant daughter, probably sitting in the hallway with my sister, trying to understand why her grandmother was trying to take her away from me, the same grandmother who'd been undermining my parenting since the day Emma was born. Your Honor, my lawyer started, but I touched her arm, signaling I wanted to speak. May I address the court? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. The judge nodded, and I wheeled myself forward. Years of navigating both physical and social barriers had taught me when to fight and how to do it effectively. This was one of those moments. I've been in this wheelchair since I was 16. I began meeting Margaret's cold stare. A car accident took my ability to walk, but it gave me something else. Determination. I graduated top of my class in physical therapy, met my husband, and built a life that I'm proud of. When Emma was born, yes, I had to adapt. But that's what parents do, wheelchair or not. I pulled out my phone, pulling up a video I'd been saving for this moment. This is from last weekend's swim meet, I said, holding it up. The screen showed Emma diving into the pool, her strokes powerful and precise. I might not be able to swim with her, but I've never missed a practice. I'm the one who drives her to training at 5 a.m., the one who helps her with her technique from the poolside. The video switched to Emma climbing out of the pool, rushing to where I sat in my wheelchair. Mom, did you see? I beat my personal best. Her joy was contagious, her wet arms thrown around me without hesitation. The thing about being a parent with a disability, I continued, my voice growing stronger, is that you learn to focus on what you can do, not what you can't. I might not be able to run alongside Emma, but I've taught her something more valuable, that different doesn't mean less capable. Margaret scoffed, but I noticed her confidence wavering. She needs a normal mother, she insisted, but her voice had lost some of its conviction. Normal? Thomas finally spoke up, his quiet voice carrying across the courtroom. Mom, Olivia's not just a good mother, she's an extraordinary one. Emma's thriving, she's confident, compassionate, and determined, just like her mom. If you'd stop trying to tear our family apart, you might actually see that. The judge leaned forward, her expression thoughtful. Mrs. Chen Martinez, how does Emma feel about your disability? I smiled, remembering a conversation from just last week. She told her class during show and tell that her mom has superpowers, that my wheelchair is like a rocket ship, and that I taught her that obstacles are just opportunities to be creative. This is absurd, Margaret interrupted. She's manipulating everyone. Emma needs her mother, the judge cut in firmly. And from what I've seen, she has an excellent one. She turned to address Margaret directly. Mrs. Martinez, your petition for custody is denied. Furthermore, I'm ordering you to attend sensitivity training regarding disabilities and family dynamics. The relief that flooded through me was overwhelming. Thomas wrapped his arm around my shoulders, and I could feel him trembling slightly. This isn't over, Margaret hissed as she gathered her designer purse. Emma deserves better. But it was over, at least this battle. As we left the courtroom, Emma ran toward us, her dark ponytail bouncing. Mom, Dad, she launched herself into my lap, her favorite spot since she was tiny. Can we get ice cream? I hugged her close, breathing in the familiar scent of chlorine and strawberry shampoo. Ice cream sounds perfect, champion. Looking at my daughter's smiling face, I knew Margaret was wrong. Emma didn't need a normal mother. She needed exactly what she had. A mother who could teach her that limitations are only barriers if you let them be. That different can be extraordinary, and that love doesn't require legs to stand on. What I didn't know then was that this was just the beginning of our story. Emma's determination, sparked by watching her wheelchair-bound mother navigate life with grace and grit, would lead her down a path none of us expected, not even Margaret with all her prejudices and plans. But that day, as we headed for ice cream, our little family unit intact and stronger for having weathered this storm, I felt nothing but gratitude. Gratitude for my supportive husband, our amazing daughter, and yes, even for my wheelchair, because it had taught me that sometimes the biggest victories come after the hardest fights. But that day, as we headed for ice cream, our little family unit intact and stronger for having weathered this storm, I felt nothing but gratitude. Gratitude for my supportive husband, our amazing daughter, and yes, even for my wheelchair, because it had taught me that sometimes the biggest victories come after the hardest fights. 7 years flew by in a whirlwind of chlorine-scented mornings and endless laps. Emma, now 15, had transformed from a promising swimmer into something extraordinary. But life had other plans for us. It happened during a routine training session. One moment Emma was gliding through the water, her strokes powerful and precise. The next she was clutching her leg, her face contorted in pain. "Mom," her cry echoed across the pool. I wheeled myself closer as the coach helped her out of the water. "I can't feel my legs properly." The diagnosis came like a thunderbolt. Guillain-Barré syndrome, a rare disorder where the body's immune system attacks the nerves. The doctors said it was caught early, but Emma would need intensive therapy. There was a chance she might not swim competitively again. Margaret, of course, couldn't resist weighing in. "This is what happens when you let someone in a wheelchair raise a child," she spat during one of her uninvited hospital visits. "She probably inherited your weakness." I was about to respond when Emma's voice cut through the room, sharp and clear. "Grandma, stop. Mom's not weak. She's the strongest person I know." Margaret's face reddened. "Darling, I'm just saying." "You're just being cruel," Emma interrupted. "Mom taught me that disabilities don't define us, and now I get to prove it, just like she does every day." I watched my daughter, my heart swelling with pride. Even lying in a hospital bed, uncertain if she'd walk properly again, she showed more strength than Margaret had ever understood. The next few months were a battle of determination versus despair. Emma approached her physical therapy with the same intensity she'd given to swimming. I recognized the fire in her eyes. It was the same one I'd had after my accident. "Mom," she said one evening during a particularly tough session, "I want to try something different." She showed me a video on her phone. Paralympic swimming. Athletes with various disabilities cutting through the water with incredible speed and grace. "If I can't compete in regular competitions anymore," she continued, her eyes shining, "maybe I can find a new way to chase my dreams." That's when I saw it, the moment my daughter transformed her challenge into an opportunity. Just as I had done years ago, she was refusing to let circumstances define her limits. The journey wasn't easy. Some days, Emma could barely stand. Other days, she pushed too hard and ended up in tears of frustration. But she never quit. "You know what's funny, Mom?" she said during one of our late-night talks. "All those years watching you navigate the world from your wheelchair, you were actually teaching me how to adapt, how to find different ways to achieve my goals." Thomas supported us completely, attending every therapy session he could. Even some of Margaret's flying monkeys, her equally judgmental friends, had to admit that our family unit was stronger than ever. 1 year after her diagnosis, Emma entered her first Paralympic qualifying event. Her times weren't her personal best from before the syndrome, but they were impressive for her new category. Margaret showed up unexpectedly at the competition. "I came to support her," she said stiffly, avoiding my eyes. "Despite everything, she's still my granddaughter." I watched as Emma took her position at the starting block. Her legs weren't as strong as they used to be, but her spirit was unshakable. When the whistle blew, she dove in with the same grace she'd always possessed. The crowd erupted as Emma touched the wall first. As she pulled herself out of the pool, her legs shaking but her smile radiant, I saw Margaret's expression change. It wasn't quite acceptance, but perhaps it was the beginning of understanding. "She swims like you used to," Margaret said quietly, surprising me. It was the first time she ever acknowledged my pre-accident life. "No," I replied. Watching Emma wave to us from the podium. She swims like herself. That's always been enough. Later that evening, as we celebrated Emma's victory, she hugged me tightly. Thanks, Mom. For what, sweetheart? For showing me that sometimes life's biggest challenges become our greatest strengths. I looked at my daughter, now standing on slightly wobbly legs but with her head held high, and realized that sometimes our greatest achievements aren't in spite of our challenges, but because of them. Emma hadn't just adapted to her new reality. She'd embraced it, transformed it, and was using it to inspire others. As I watched her show her medal to Thomas, I couldn't help but think about how far we'd come from that day in the courtroom when Margaret tried to tear us apart. My daughter wasn't just surviving. She was thriving, turning what some might see as a tragedy into a triumph. And this was just the beginning of her journey. 3 years later, I was sitting in the stands at the Paralympic Games, my heart beating fast as Emma stepped up to the pool. Bright stadium lights made the water sparkle like gold. Thomas held my hand tightly, and to my surprise, Margaret sat beside us, holding a handmade sign that said, "Go Emma." At 18, our daughter was more than just a swimmer. She was a symbol of strength. Her journey from a competitive swimmer to a Paralympian had inspired many people facing their own struggles. The announcer's voice echoed through the stadium. In lane 4, representing the United States, Emma Chen Martinez. As the swimmers got ready, I saw something unexpected. Margaret was crying. I was so wrong, she whispered, her voice shaking. About everything. The starting buzzer sounded, and Emma dove into the water. Her swimming style had changed to match her new abilities, but it was still beautiful. Every movement was strong and full of purpose. The crowd cheered as the swimmers neared the final turn. Emma was tied with a champion from Australia. In that moment, I thought of every early morning practice, every therapy session, every tear and small victory that led to this point. "Come on, Emma," Margaret shouted, surprising all of us. She stood up, waving her sign. "Show them what you can do." Emma touched the wall. We held our breath as the results came up. CH in Martinez, first. NEUPARALYMPICRETR. Thomas jumped up and lifted me from my wheelchair in joy, spinning me around. Even Margaret was cheering and hugging everyone. After the medal ceremony, Emma came over, her gold medal shining. She hugged each of us, then stopped in front of Margaret. "Grandma," she said gently, "this medal isn't just about swimming. It's about learning that different doesn't mean less. Mom taught me that. Now I want to teach others." Margaret held Emma's hands, tears falling. "I was wrong about so much," she said. "Your mother, she didn't just raise you. She raised you to be amazing." That night, at a small family celebration in our hotel, Margaret pulled me aside. "Olivia," she said, her voice full of emotion, "I want to say sorry, not just for today, but for everything. Watching Emma in that pool helped me finally understand what you've been showing us all along. Real strength comes in many forms." I looked at her, not as someone who had judged me, but as someone who had finally changed. "Thank you," I said softly. "That means a lot." Emma's win didn't just change our family. She started speaking at schools, telling her story of hope and strength. At every event, she talked about where it all began, with a mother in a wheelchair who showed her that challenges could be overcome in new ways. One afternoon, about a month later, Emma came home and saw Margaret helping me make dinner, something we never imagined years ago. "Mom," Emma said, eyes shining, "I've been asked to coach young swimmers with disabilities. They want me to help start a Paralympic training program." I looked at my daughter, standing proudly despite her unsteady legs, and felt so proud. She hadn't just overcome her struggles, she was helping others do the same. Margaret smiled as she chopped vegetables. "You know, Emma, you got that from your mom. Turning hard things into something that helps others." Emma hugged us both. I had great teachers. All of you. As I watched my family, Thomas coming home from work, Emma showing Margaret her coaching plans, I realized that life's biggest victories often look different than we expect. Margaret once saw my wheelchair as a weakness, but it helped teach Emma the most important lesson. Real strength isn't about what you can or can't do. It's about how you face the hard times. And as Emma started this new chapter, guiding other athletes to believe in themselves, I knew our story was never about proving Margaret wrong. It was about proving that love, courage, and acceptance can turn any challenge into something truly extraordinary.